Welcome to the Human Nature Channel. I'm your host, Alex Tamsula, and what am I doing here sitting in my apartment? Well, last week, as I said in my previous video, it was a busy week. I made 3 car trips up to my dad's farm, each one a 90-mile round trip, so this week I'm staying in. You may have noticed that I've changed the titles of my videos back to including the Las Vegas shooting. A couple of videos ago, as an experiment, I started putting LVMPD Fuzzy Cat in the title to see if that could beat the algorithm. The Las Vegas shooting in the title, without a doubt, is something that will be flagged for blacklisting by YouTube. If you've been following tech news, you should know that YouTube not only deranks political commentary, but out and out suppresses anything that smacks of conspiracy theory. Did you see that story about the FBI memo that said conspiracy theories online are a threat to national security? At the end of the memo, it said conspiracy theories are a threat even if the political corruption being uncovered by conspiracy theorists is true. But I also noticed that after I started to title my videos with LVMPD Fuzzy Cat, my views were down. Not one to do the same thing over and over expecting a different result, I've reversed course and put the Las Vegas shooting back in my titles. To tell you the truth, I'm glad I returned to that. Somebody who wants to hear about the Las Vegas shooting may not be interested in fuzzy cats, even if I meant it as a joke. I don't have the usual knickknacks and farm garage tools to show you, but I do have a couple of things. I have my snow shovel. I'm all set for winter. Now, what's so special about a snow shovel, you might ask? Listen to this. I'll bet your snow shovel can't do that. Out of my way, snow. Now, this next item I have is really bizarre. I'm starting to sound like the Home Shopping Network. Anyway, here we have the Tiny Golden Library. Very small, very short children's books. There are 3 sets of tiny children's books in this collection. We have Dorothy Kundhart's Tiny Animal Stories, Dorothy Kundhart's Tiny Nonsense Stories, and Walt Disney's Disneyland Stories. The first one is titled The Baby Camel and His Naughty Father. So, having something of a dirty mind, I started laughing at this. That's just a coincidence, right? There can't be anything in this children's book that could be considered lascivious or suggestive. Could it? I'll read it to you. It won't take long. Story time with your bad old Uncle Alex. The Baby Camel and His Naughty Father by Dorothy Kundhart. This tiny golden book belongs to Alex. The camel driver picked up the baby camel in his arms. "We'll give you a ride," he said. "You're too little to walk." The mother kneeled down so that her baby could be tied good and tight on the top of her hump. She looked around to see if her baby was all right. Now it was the father camel's turn to kneel down and have heavy boxes loaded on his hump. The father camel made loud groans all the time the boxes were being tied on. He spit at the driver and he tried to bite the driver's legs. "Rude old camel," said the driver. When the father camel began walking across the desert, the boxes on his hump began to jump and roll and rock and bump and jiggle so badly that the driver could hardly hold on. "Mother," asked the little camel, "does father have to jiggle his boxes so much when he walks?" "I am afraid," said the mother camel, "that your father likes to tease." When they came to a drinking place, the father camel would not put his head down near the water. At last the driver had to push his long neck down and make him drink. "Disobedient old camel," said the driver. When it was time to eat, the driver spread a rug on the sand and poured some grain on it for the camel's lunch. But the father camel walked off by himself and ate a big thistle all covered with prickers. The mother camel and her baby ate the grain. When the driver was not looking, the father camel came back and began to eat the rug that was lying on the sand. So only one last little piece of rug was hanging out of the father camel's mouth. The driver put a muzzle on the father camel. "There, you bad old camel," he said. "Now you won't eat any more things you shouldn't. You're a bad camel." "Poor father," said the little camel, "to have a muzzle on. He must be very sorry he ate the rug." The father camel looked around at his baby. "Who's sorry?" he said. "I'm glad I ate it. It was yummy." He really was a tease, wasn't he, that father camel? He ate the rug, huh? I guess those prickers weren't enough for him. I'm going to put this book away and then put the library back on my shelf next to Naked Lies, Dark Games, Ceremonies of the Flesh, and Yakuza Perfume. Okay, enough silliness. Now that we've gotten all the ha-ha out of the way, it's time to get on to the serious stuff. By serious stuff, I mean my long-promised, long-anticipated, long-delayed presentation on Brian Hodge, the Australian concert promoter who was something of a witness to the Route 91 Harvest Festival massacre. I say something of a witness because he was staying at the Mandalay Bay in a room on the 32nd floor. Now, which room he was in has become the source of much controversy, which I will cover later. But as the shooting was happening, Hodge had a lot to say about it on Twitter and Facebook. And later, when he returned to Australia, he did a lot of interviews on Australian TV. The problem is, once I started looking into all the things that were being said about Hodge in all sorts of websites and videos, from True Pundit and One American Network over here, implying Hodge is some kind of black ops guy, all the way over there to Politico, which contends Hodge is a victim of a smear from the paranoid anti-jihadist, anti-Marxist, anti-Antifa fringe, I was shocked at what an overall mess the coverage was. Even Brian Shields did a video on Hodge saying this poor Hodge character was getting dumped on for no good goddamn reason. If I ever thought getting a straight answer on who Mr. Hodge was going to get easy, I ended up thinking otherwise. Now, whether Hodge is getting dumped on for no reason is a question I still have to answer for myself. What's going to happen is I will start dealing with this issue before this video is through, but I need to do more digging, and it looks like part 2 of this will take place in my next Farm Garage video. So it's Wednesday night, and I was getting ready to make a start on the Brian Hodge stuff one more time when I saw Jason Goodman was doing a live stream, and he had John Cullen back on. And I said, oh fuck, I can't resist. I gotta go over there and see what's being said. Well, I do hate to say it, but it was the same old hodgepodge of uninformed shit. They were going over the cabbie video, making echoes into a second shooter. I have had a much more intelligent accounting of what was going on in that cabbie video, so I'm groaning already. I made 2 comments in the chat box just to let him know I was there. Colin said the cops at the Vegas shooting didn't know where the shots were coming from, and I made the comment, well, what about Detective Balonek and his visual on the shooter? Then they started bringing Jeffrey Epstein into it, and I said, that's it. I'm out of here. So I'm getting ready to make a start on the Brian Hodge stuff one more time, and I see Mike Turbers doing a live stream, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go over there. I think Mike had already been on for an hour. So I'm there, and I said in the chat box, hi everybody, and Mike says, hey, Alex is here. And folks who are subscribers of mine were there and started saying hello. Mike Turber's live chats are like walking into my favorite bar. The contrast between Turber and Goodman's chats is like the difference between night and day. George Burns, my #1 raving fan, was there, and he said hi. JHHVAC said hi. I Am 2 Bear gave me a greeting. Pac-Man 9842 was there. I said hi to him because he was over at Goodman's chat. Fawn Spy was there, but I didn't get a chance to say hi to her because I think she left. Hi, Fawn Spy. After Mike's live chat was done and before I went to bed, I sent some tweets, 5 in all, over to Jason Goodman's Crowdsource the Truth feed. Now, it's not correct to say Jason Goodman ignores me. He did answer one of my tweets once saying, you seem so argumentative almost all the time. Honestly, I don't understand what Mr. Goodman is all about. He makes me feel like I'm James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause and he's the guidance counselor. You seem so argumentative almost all the time. My answer to that was, almost? I thought I was argumentative all the time. His channel should be called Jason and Friends if he's going to turn off his critical thinking skills and just sit there saying, golly gee whiz there, John Cullen. But like I said, I sent Jason some tweets and I'm going to share them with you. This, ladies and gentlemen, is my last word on John Cullen via Jason Goodman. I'm done with the helicopter crap. I'm going to put all these tweets together for you and we're going to leave it at that. This is what I had to say to Jason. I was trained to be an English teacher, which is the reason I'm so hostile. I get very angry when I hear people abusing language. John Cullen says, I don't have proof, I have evidence. What's he saying? I've got nothing, but I got something? And he doesn't have evidence. Evidence is something you take before a judge without wasting the judge's time. What Cullen has is data. And you can arrange data in such a way to make a good story but not have anything to do with reality. I was at your live stream long enough to hear Cullen say the cops don't know where the shots were coming from, and that's not true. Detective Balinek got a visual on the shooter. The map is not the territory. So how good is Cullen's map? If you want to believe in shooting from helicopters, you've got to explain room 135 full of guns. Cullen never touches that. I'll challenge Cullen's map any old day of the week. Helicopters could have been there. Ask Cullen how he's sure they weren't rapid action counter-terrorist units from Nellis flying over Vegas in case of a Mumbai-sized attack. Top secret, no transponders, scrubbed evidence, plausible deniability. And you know what makes this really gratifying? When I got up the next morning, I saw my good friend Eric Peters, who follows me on Twitter, gave all 5 of these tweets hearts. Thank you, Eric. I've heard it said that YouTube is not necessarily a social media platform, and I understand what the guy meant. If your channel has something like 300,000 subscribers and each of your videos gets over 100 comments, it wouldn't be feasible to engage everybody. My channel is not that big yet, and it is not monetized, and I wouldn't even try monetizing it considering the type of content I do. I'm not making money, but you know what I am making? I'm making friends. I'm getting in touch with people whose input I enjoy and appreciate, and I'll take that over monetization any old day of the week. So, with concert promoter Brian Hodge, we once again find ourselves caught between the paddock as perpetrator versus paddock as participant dichotomy. Brian Hodge is not a famous man, but it appears he is well known in at least some quarters of the music industry. Here we have a screen grab from the anonymous Martialist YouTube channel and his video Brian Hodge and Marilou Danley. As usual, I will leave a link to all videos mentioned. In this collage of photos, we see Hodge with some famous musicians such as Rod Stewart on the left. We see him with Mariah Carey on the right, and in the upper left, that looks like he's standing next to Bono of U2. Mr. Hodge was originally from New South Wales, Australia, where they put their livestock in a paddock, and he had been living in Los Angeles for 8 years prior to becoming a witness to the Route 91 Harvest Festival massacre. Although Mr. Hodge doesn't seem to have given any interviews to any American news outlets, although the Las Vegas Sun ran an AP story that quoted Hodge, from what I'm seeing, he gave numerous interviews to the Australian press, and I also heard he did interviews on Australian TV. His story basically is this. On October 1st, sometime after 10:05 p.m., he was going up to his room on the 32nd floor of Mandalay Bay after having dinner with his staff. When he stepped out of the elevator, he encountered a woman who told him, "You need to get out, there's a shooter." That was the opening statement he made to a reporter who I think was with an Australian news team. You can hear that clip in Anonymous Martialists analyzing Brian Hodge, the concert producer at Las Vegas shooting, ? At this point, it sounds as if Hodge is hearing about the shooting for the first time from the woman. He goes on to say he pushed everybody into an elevator and they go down to the kitchen of the hotel, where he informs kitchen staff that a shooting was in progress. He gets out of the building and says he hid in the bushes for the next 3 hours. This is the story we are all familiar with if we know anything about Brian Hodge. But then things start to get a little strange. I've come across a few online news outlets covering Mr. Hodge's version of events, The Independent out of the UK and the Courier Mail, which is owned by News Corp. But the one outlet that gave us a concise package of the quotes from Hodge found in these articles is the Sydney Morning Herald. Here is Brian Hodge in his own words. It was hardcore, like it was full machine guns for 20 seconds and then it stopped for 5 seconds, then it just went again. There were so many shots fired, I couldn't tell you how many. A woman came right up to my face and she said, "You got to turn back, there is a shooter," and we all just started running. Now here I'm going to stop and comment. Did you notice how the chronology seems to have shifted? In the interview and anonymous Martialist's video, Hodge made it sound as if he learned of the shooting from the woman on the 32nd floor. He said he was going up to his room, and pardon me, but that left me with the impression he was going up alone since there is no mention of others. But in this print interview, he seems to have already known the shooting was underway before his encounter with the woman who came right up to my face. Let's continue. Hodge tells us he was with 20 of his staffers, which is a hell of a crowd going up to a hotel room when you think about it. They fled to a nearby lift and piled in with other terrified hotel patrons. When we got to the ground floor of the casino, it was just utter chaos. There were people screaming and running. We ran into a nearby hallway and ended up in the casino's kitchen. None of the staff were aware of what was happening, so we told them what was going on and we all ran out onto the street. Mr. Hodge said he hid in the bushes outside the hotel for 3 hours. We could just hear bullets being fired and then we could see the bright lights of the helicopters flying over the top of us. I was just laying on the ground. It was like a scene from a movie. The shooter was up above and we didn't know where they were. I didn't want anybody to know where I was, so I just curled up and hid. It was the most terrifying moment of my life. He just curled up and hid. Okay, wait 1 second here. Is he saying he hid in the bushes with 20 other people? Or if not, where did they all go? Did they just leave him curled up on the ground with a "see you later, Brian"? I don't know. But Hodge then tells us about seeing the SWAT team storm the hotel. They were in the full police gear and we could just see torches and guns and they were yelling at everybody to stay down or put up their hands. Hodge said police told him the gunman was in room 32-135, just one room away from his hotel room. I'm in room 32-134, so I'm just so glad I didn't make it back to my room. In the AP story, Hodge said, "It's unsettling to think he had been sleeping next to a room filled with guns and ammunition." As we know by now, this is an error. Hodge could not have been staying in room 32-134. How does a world traveler like Brian Hodge, a concert promoter for years, make an error like that? He does seem pretty adamant that that was his room. Even after he got back to Australia, he keeps repeating this erroneous room number. In the Courier Mail, Hodge says, "It was a machine gun from the next room to me. My floor is a crime scene. They killed a security guard on my floor." I'm going to end part one of Hodge's story here with some closing thoughts. I'm really struck by the difference in tone and content between the interview he gave to the woman holding the Channel 7 microphone and what he told the Australian tabloids, because tabloids is what they were. I'm also struck by the fact that he kept insisting he was next door to Paddock's room, even after he most certainly went back to his actual hotel room to get his things before leaving town. Is Brian Hodge really that dumb? I don't think so. But I'm really bothered by all this because the most charitable explanation I can come up with is that Hodge was embellishing or outright conflating details after the fact for the tabloids. As we will see in part 2, this possible embellishing and his claims he was staying in room 32-134 became the source of a lot of problems for Mr. Hodge later on. So, no song tonight, although there are songs coming up in later videos. I just wanted to get this video finished and out there and start writing part 2. But I'll leave you with this question. Did Brian Hodge become the target of a smear campaign because he's something of a drama queen, or is there a legitimate reason to believe he's more than he appears to be? I will let you dwell on that. Later, troops.